Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. So Sir Peter Beck just did a new interview. The interview was done on Inauguration Day and was released today. And I think it's a really good interview. It's a 16-minute one. It was done by Leading Indicator, which I think is part of public, or I don't know why it was released there or whatever. So not sure who the interviewer is. Never heard of him, but it's a really good interview. And I have just got to shout out the retail investors of Rocket Lab today. We were up 30% on the stock. It's unbelievable. I know a lot of lives have been changed with Rocket Lab. It's beautiful to see, and congratulations, guys. So let's look at this interview. I will keep the chatter to a minimum, but I'm going to give you my opinion at a few points because yeah, there's some good points in here. And as always, please do all the YouTube stuff, subscribe and like and so forth. And if you want to do go even further and support the channel, there is a link in the description box below where you can become a channel member. And thank you if you do that. So let's begin the interview. Here we go.
Hey everyone, joining me today for a really exciting interview. I cannot wait to talk to this guy is Sir Peter Beck. Peter is the founder and CEO of Rocket Lab. Peter, it is really great to have you. Congrats on all the success and thanks for taking the time today.
Oh, my pleasure.
So let's talk about 2024. What a huge year it was for you and everyone over at Rocket Lab. 16 rocket launches, if I'm not mistaken, a new record for the company. You're on track currently for record quarterly revenue. The stock, for people who follow how it trades, up almost 400% in the last 52 weeks. Peter, that's a lot of enthusiasm. What do you attribute that enthusiasm to?
Yeah, no, well, thanks very much. Look, it's all about execution, right? As you mentioned, execution on launch, but execution across our space systems, and delivering quarter after quarter as we said we would. So yeah, look, I think it's down to execution, and I also think that you know, there's a bunch of very high profile space companies in the world. And we just quietly and methodically go about doing our thing, and you know, the delta between those space companies is starting to shrink, and so I think that starts to get recognised over a period of time.
You call yourself an end-to-end space company. First, for people who have heard of Rocket Lab but may not have had time to kind of look under the hood too much, what does that mean, Peter? And how is Rocket Lab positioning itself to be a even increasingly bigger player in the space economy?
Yeah, no, great question. So I think most space companies you can look across, and they're either a launch company, you know, they operate a rocket, or they're a satellite company where they have, you know, build satellites, or they're an operator where they operate satellites. And I think the thing that makes us unique is that we do all of those things. So you know, we design and build rockets, we launch them. We design and build satellites, we launch them, and we also operate satellites. So you know, typically the industry is kind of bifurcated, if you will, trifurcated across those three segments. Well, you know, a customer can come to us and say, actually, you know, I want to do this thing in space, and you know, we can design the satellite, build the satellite, launch the satellite, and operate the satellite. So that's very, very unique in this industry.
So when you talk about a customer, appropriately, you and I are having this conversation today, at least when we're recording. This is Inauguration Day for Donald Trump's White House down in Washington. I'm sure you may have heard. I believe you've said before, Peter, your customer base is about 50-50, 50% government, 50% commercial. Are you bullish on what the Trump administration means for Rocket Lab? And if so, why?
Yeah, I am actually, because for a couple of reasons. One, you know, there is a clear focus on defence and a clear focus on efficiency, and getting the most out of the taxpayer dollar for the nation. And you know, on those two fronts, these are very important and strong areas for Rocket Lab. You know, we are, you know, fully commercial company. We don't do the traditional defence contracting cost plus kind of contracts. So you know, for us, you know, if the government wants high value for their taxpayer dollar and you know, return an asset, then you know, that's where a sweet spot is for us in our wheelhouse. So you know, no, we think this new administration will be very, very good for us. It'll be good for the space industry. It's very pro space, very pro defence, and these are, you know, our two big sectors.
What are the biggest catalysts and the potential landmines for 2025 for Rocket Lab?
Yeah, well, for us, it's really the year of Neutron. So this year, we're trying to get Neutron to the pad and launch successfully. That is consuming, all the resources and all the mind share of everybody in the company right now. So that's probably the biggest project within the company. But in saying that, we have a number of major satellite deliveries for customers as well. The MDA Global Star satellites will be delivered this year. This is a direct to mobile constellation, as well as a number of other projects. And we're looking to do new things and grow into new areas. But look, everything is dwarfed by the giant rocket on the pad. That's for sure.
When are you expecting the first launch for Neutron? It's been talked a lot about. Investors want to know. And how much of the success this year and into next year do you think hinges on Neutron compared to Electron or any of your previous launches?
Yeah, well, I mean, the important thing to remember is 2/3 of our revenue actually comes from space systems and not launch itself. Now that starts to change a bit when Neutron comes online, but the business is tremendously underpinned by a lot of the space system stuff. But we're looking to try and fly the Neutron vehicle by the middle of the year and get that first successful flight, and then the following year we'll do another 3 flights, and then following year another 5. So that's kind of the walking into cadence that we're looking for.
All right, middle of the year, we'll be watching it closely. There was a fascinating headline I saw this morning. This is just this morning, Peter. It's from the Motley Fool, and the headline says, Rocket Lab just might be the first space company to figure out how to compete with SpaceX on price. How'd you do that, Peter?
Well, look, I mean, we've always had to do that from day one, so this is not new news to us. We've always had to compete with SpaceX and others, quite frankly, and we are a fully commercially publicly traded company, so everything is laid bare to see, and it's just been a standard part of our reality that our 2 biggest competitors are the 2 wealthiest people on this planet and have basically essentially infinite capital. So we can never outspend those guys. So we have to we have to find different ways, and typically that's through technology and innovation, and we've been able to compete very strongly to date.
It's not only infinite capital, but there is a presumed kind of coziness between those 2 business leaders and the incoming president. Again, you and I were having this conversation a short time ago. The inauguration more or less wrapped up on Capitol Hill. Impossible not to notice that Elon Musk of SpaceX is a few feet away from the president, that Jeff Bezos of Blue Origin seated just a few feet away from the president. How do you view those relationships as potential headwinds, if at all, for competitors like Rocket Lab?
Before he answers that question, I just have to say that I don't know why lately this has been one of the most asked questions of me on Twitter whenever I talk about Rocket Lab is, am I not afraid that, corrupt Trump and corrupt Elon, they're going to take all the space jobs? And number one, I'm really not afraid of it. Number two, look at what the market has priced in since the Trump presidency. So the market clearly doesn't think that this is even a remote possibility. And listen to this answer. It's very important.
Yeah, look, I don't think there can be any funny business there. And those relationships, exist for a number of reasons. But when it comes, to actually executing programs to the best efficiency of the taxpayer's dollar, I mean, ultimately that there can't be any funny business there, and we don't expect there to be. So I think for other reasons that might be important, but as far as competitive landscape for us, we don't really think that's an issue.
SpaceX had 138 launches last calendar year, 2024, if I'm not mistaken. We mentioned you've had 16, but that's up significantly from where you were in previous years. The sort of the pattern, the direction Rocket Lab is moving is increasing quite a lot. How do you view the market share of SpaceX or even a Blue Origin relative to where Rocket Lab is today?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of important things there. Obviously SpaceX have got a well head start on us, and in a lot of respects, create a great bow wave that we tuck in behind, which is awesome. But if we actually look at the data, the first to 50 flights, the speed from 0 to 50 flights, Rocket Lab is actually faster than SpaceX to get there. And we think if we continue on our current cadence with Electron, we'll be first to get to 100 flights. Yep, we're certainly tucking in behind a great bow wave, but if you look at the data, we kind of do pretty well. So Neutron is obviously an important element for us, and the ramping of that flight cadence will be super important. But the one thing that is for sure, and the one thing that I don't worry about at night is there enough market share for all of us to go around? Launch is hugely constrained. As new launch vehicles come onto market and come to market along with their own, the availability of customers and solving that launch crisis is something I don't worry about.
Bit of a nerdy space question, if you don't mind. I've got lots of them. I'll try and limit them for the interview.
They're the best. Please, they're the best.
Know. So I want to ask about your launch sites. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got one in New Zealand. That's home for you. And you also got one in Virginia. You got one here in the States, right?
Correct.
Which launches happen where and why? And I know a lot of space fans, they kind of gravitate to the history of Launchpad 39B, Kennedy. Obviously, SpaceX is doing a lot of their launches there. Any interest in expanding those launch sites, I wonder?
Yeah, well, so, right now we're pretty well served, right? So the New Zealand launch sites are purely for Electron launch vehicles. A Neutron will never launch down in New Zealand. There's just not enough scale down here to be able to, support that. But the New Zealand launch pad, it's very unique in the fact that it's, one of only 2 privately owned launch pads in the world. Obviously, SpaceX has got Boca Chica. We've had, Mahia Peninsula now for many, many years. But it gives us the ability to launch out sun-synchronous and also mid-inclination out of the one site, which is unusual. If you're in the States, if you want to launch sun-synchronous, you have to go out of the West Coast. If you want to go mid-inclination, you have to go out of the East Coast. And, that's been part of the success of the Electron vehicle, is just having that, just unfettered access to launch and launch sites. Then the one in Wallops, it was a big decision point for us. Do we go to the Cape or do we go to Wallops? But, the Cape's a pretty busy place, I'm a little bit impatient. I don't really want to have to get in line and wait for my launch slot. So, going down the road a little bit to Wallops gave us the ability to have, tremendous amount of access to orbit without having to get in line behind the big boys. So that is it's a huge advantage for us down at that launch site. Yep, it's a few degrees inclination less than what you can get out of the Cape, but actually for the majority of flights that really doesn't matter. But it does give us a completely empty launch site to walk onto.
Oh, that is fascinating perspective. As a lot of space fans, you go to these places, Houston, wherever else, Johnson Space Center, and you take in the history and you recognize why these places are important. It's awesome. And you sound like such a fan of the work. And I can tell that from your previous interviews and even as you tell here, right? Like at the end of the day, you just got to be, and I say this with all due respect, you got to be like the biggest space nerd going, right? You got to love this stuff. And it sounds like you and your team really do to be able to compete the way that you have.
Yeah. But there's one thing that trumps that, and that's good business. And I think this is where Rocket Lab has been successful over others, is that the space industry attracts a number of really passionate people. This is one of the hardest things you can do, so you've got to be incredibly passionate about it. But at the end of the day, for us, business comes first, and we make business decisions over kind of passionate, space geeky decisions every day. And the Wallops Island one was a great example. I walked around the Cape and we had the opportunity to inhabit some amazing historic launch pads at the Cape. Half my brain is like, this is hallowed ground. This is the most amazing place to ever launch a rocket. Wouldn't it be cool to have a Rocket Lab logo here? But the other half of me is like, well, no, this is not a good business decision, and that half will always win.
I really, really, really loved how he answered this question. Like, I cannot tell you how much I love this. So Peter Beck, against all odds, very counterintuitive, but he's a businessman first and space nerd second. And this is how they have been able to stay alive and not gone down the route of Astra or Virgin Orbit. Or Galactic, I don't know which one went bankrupt and which one is going bankrupt soon. So this is a very, very important distinction, and I think this is the first time he has said it in any interview. So very, very happy with that one.
Yeah, that is fascinating context from someone in your position. So thanks for letting me ask that, because we don't get to hear that perspective a lot as space fans. I want to ask you about the Artemis missions. Now, you've already been involved insofar as the capstone kind of lunar satellite. I wonder what more Rocket Lab might be doing for future Artemis missions, and any concerns about the delay schedule. That's a big thing for fans who follow the space closely here in the U.S. It's that we've got now Artemis 2 and Artemis 3. We keep kind of pushing those time horizons a little further and further out. And I wonder what that means for your company, if anything.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be interesting to watch what the new administration wants to do here, because the Artemis program, while very successful in actually delivering what it needed to deliver for the first mission, I think there's going to be a little bit of a scratch on the chin and a ponder about, well, are we going to the moon or are we going to Mars? And what does the future of human spaceflight look like to these far off destinations? So it'll be interesting to see. I think that cake's not fully set yet. So it'll be interesting to see what the new administration's view is on Artemis and human spaceflight to these further destinations.
So to that point, Elon Musk, of course, has very famously said the idea of being a multi-planetary species, it's necessary to survive. We want to go to Mars. Do you agree with that? How possible is that? Or are you not too concerned with that type of conversation right now?
Well, look, I think it's good for humanity to put a footprint on Mars. Do I fully subscribe to the Plan B, objective? Not so sure. But I mean, I think it's hugely inspiring, and lots of technology will be created that will benefit everybody down on Earth to put a footprint on Mars. So I think we should absolutely go and do that. But I think there's also a lot to learn throughout a solar system within the space sciences that can have a huge benefit to humanity,
including the first private exploration of Venus. Peter, what a cool mission! What's the goal there? What should people who aren't familiar with those ambitions know about it?
Yeah, well, I think Venus is a little bit of an understudied planet in a lot of respects, and there is a certain altitude within the clouds of Venus where it's kind of possible that some kind of life could exist. And our mission is to go and try and sample that cloud, and almost think of it as a go no go gauge for life in that region. And I think that's important for a couple of reasons. One, if you look at the scientific evidence we have to date, we have discovered no other life outside Earth. So, if you want to be scientific about it, the only statement that we can make today that's true is that we are the only life in the universe. Now, I'm not sure that will be true, but I mean, until we get evidence to prove otherwise, that's kind of a scientific fact. If we could go to somewhere like Venus and actually find some form of life in the atmosphere, I think that says two things. It says, firstly, we are not the only life in the universe, and I think that's profound. But also, if life can live in the clouds of Venus, then it's most likely prolific throughout the universe, which I think is another very profound thing. So, for me personally, trying to answer some of those questions in my lifetime would be a wonderful thing to do.
I don't know how often you get asked this. Do you personally think we're alone in the universe?
No, I think statistically there's most likely other forms of life. Now, are they intelligent or otherwise? Who really knows? But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an engineer and a scientist, so I have to take the scientific method. And if you follow that approach, then we have, like I say, we have no evidence to prove otherwise right now, and we really need to find that evidence.
Yeah, the observable universe is enormous, and it certainly sounds like Rocket Lab is up to the enormity of those tasks to helping us understand it all a little bit better. I'm really grateful to your time. I've loved this interview. I hope our listeners do too. That's Sir Peter Beck. He's the founder and CEO of Rocket Lab. Peter, thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys, so that was the interview. I hope you really liked it as much as I did. It was fantastic data. Again, the most asked questions that I get is... lately, I don't know why, if corrupt Elon and corrupt Trump is going to give all the space things to SpaceX, and I just see no indication of that. The stock market is showing no signs of that, and founder and CEO of Rocket Lab also doesn't think that there is going to be funny business. There's plenty of things to go around. SpaceX is a market leader currently, and I think they're going to get majority of the contracts, which basically matches their technological lead. But again, such a big market that if Rocket Lab just gets a tiny little bit of it, it's a lot more than we have had before. And then this revelation about how he's so business minded. I mean, we saw it on him, but I truly believe that this is an underappreciated point about Sir Peter Beck. So that was very cool to hear. Anyways, please make sure you do all the YouTube goodies, as you know. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to go further, there's the link down in the description box below. Yeah, may the skies stay blue and your stock stays green. And see you tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.